All right, so in this video, we'll be creating DFAs that accept three fundamental languages, which are sigmastar, the empty set, and the language simply containing the empty string. Okay, here, let's just say, for the purposes of our exercise, that in all cases, the alphabet is 0, 1. Okay, so let's start with sigmastar, right? So what is sigmastar? Let's just remind this. Sigmastar, you're applying the star operation to the alphabet sigma. So what are you doing? You're doing sigma 0, union sigma 1, union sigma 2, union, and so on, right? So really, it's the infinite union of sigma i's, right? So in other words, it's all strings over the alphabet sigma, which is 0, 1, right? Why is it that? Because this encodes all strings of the alphabet 0, 1 that have length 0, sorry, not length 1, length 0. This is length 1, this is length 2, and so on, right? For any length, right? Of course, no string has infinite length, right? That's not possible. But you can have an arbitrary large string length. And so whatever that string length, it's going to be in sigmastar. Okay. Of course, sigmastar is an infinite language, right? Because you can keep adding strings that are bigger and bigger. Okay? So how do I accept all of the strings, essentially? Well, it's actually quite easy, right? Because what you need to do is, if you see a 0 or 1, another 0, another 1, you don't care, right? You're just going to keep sort of eating them up, right? You're going to keep eating these strings up, right? So you can think of your machine as being very hungry, right? It's hungry for any string. It'll accept any string. So any string that goes into it, right? Whether it be a 0, a 1, or any sequence of those, any combination of those, it's going to accept, right? So that's going to be your final state, right? Your final state is actually going to be the only state in your machine, right? And that's also going to be your start state, right? So that if you have lambda, 0, 1, or any other string, then any of these strings, any string w, you just feed into this state. It keeps looping, right? Keeps looping until it reaches the end of w. And of course, because you have only one state, and that state is a final state, you're going to accept. And actually, what's interesting is that if you had any DFA, right? So if you had a DFA M, let's get the notation correct. So, right, a DFA is a 5-tuple. I might have gotten these two mixed up, the delta and the Q0, but right, you have your states, your alphabet, your transition function. Actually, I do think that it's this way. Your initial state, transition function, and your final state, right? If Q is equal to F, right? If all of your states are final states, then this implies that because it's a DFA, the language accepted by M is sigmastar. Right? So, meaning if I created another machine, right, let's say a machine like this, whoops, that's a 1 here, let's say 0, 1 here, 0 here, and then 0, 1, and I made all of the states except states, right? So is this a DFA? Yes. Okay. Then any string, right, any string that you give this guy, you go through a whole computation, wherever you end up, you're going to end up in an accept state, right? So you're going to finish reading the string, and at the end, you're going to find yourself in a state in your machine, right? Of course. And because that state will certainly be a final state, this statement, right, this implication is true. Okay, what about the empty set, right? So the empty set is kind of like the opposite, right? So if you have the language being the empty set, right? So that means that you don't accept anything, right? You're not going to accept any string, right? So that means that whatever you give your machine is going to always reject it. So you can imagine this say this auto shop, right, that never takes any customers, right? So whenever a customer comes in, the customer can be encoded as let's say a binary digit, then it's always going to reject it, right? So whatever string you give, right, it doesn't matter, you're always going to be in this dead state. So you're in perpetual rejection, right? That's what you're doing. You're perpetually rejecting. So this is a very lonely machine. Rejecting any string, right? And then similarly, actually, so if I have a DFA M, right, and M is a set of states, alphabet, transition function, initial state, final state, right? So again, I might have gotten these switched. And the set of final states is empty, right? Then that means that whatever string you give, you can never land in an accept state, right? So clearly this implies that the language accepted by M is the empty set. Okay. All right, and lastly, what about this language, right? This language is the language only containing the empty string. Well, for a DFA, the only way that you can accept the empty string is if you have your start state and you make the start state a final state, right? Because remember how your machine works, the pointer starts here. So if you give it the empty string, right, then you want it to not move, right? So if it doesn't move, it's going to stay in Q0. But then if it stays in Q0 forever, right, that just means that no input has been given to it. And so you want that that state that your machine is in to be an accept state, right? And so for anything else, right, so if you have a 0 or a 1 or any other combination of 0 1s, right, as long as your string is not empty, you're going to reject, right? So then this is the only accept state, and this is going to be your dead state. So you'll notice that whatever you give, if you give a string W that's not empty, right, then whatever it is, it's going to end up in here. And because it can't escape this black hole of rejection, right, it can't go back here, then that's going to be a reject for any other string. Okay. All right, and that's how you would accept, that's how you create machines to accept sigma star, the empty set, and the set containing lambda.